And then you can respond, or you want three?
No.
Okay, all can take. I'm taking note of.
Oh,
Okay.
used to take the whole class and then he has to
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, JNU Academic and Supriy for this opportunity. I was very happy to read this book, and let me begin by saying that this is like a nostalgia trip for JNU students who passed out or who are not attending the classes, because this book thoroughly reminds them of Manindra sir's classes, and the way he's speaking, I think it reflects truly in the book. So if I have to tell somebody like who's from JNU, my batchmate, it will be just like Manindra sir ka classes right, and you'll find that. So that's one thing. Secondly, I was impressed by the fact that this is a book, an intervention made in Hindi. I've spent 6 to 7 years now, I think, dealing with text with two authors, Shukla and Trivedi, and other thinkers, Bhartendra Harishchandra, for example, and use my training as a political scientist to incorporate and to discuss different ideas that emerge in their works. And I was very happy to see Thakur sir writing this book, and I enjoyed the language also. Like I enjoyed reading the book. But coming to the discussion, I think there is an opportunity missed here, according to me, because when you're using thinkers like Shukla and Trivedi and also Jaishankar Prasad, I think that even in that period, the period that you're only using in the book, which is about the early first 50 or the first half of the 20th century, I think there is also a huge debate about the nature of the language, about the nature of Hindi. And I think this problem about the language and the systemic discrimination does not resolve by just using Hindi instead of English. I think there has to be a deeper discussion about what kind of, because the thinkers that you are using in the book, let's say Trivedi, are discussing this question, are discussing the nature of the language that they want, what should be the inspiration and aspiration of the language. Should it just end at using Hindi? Should it just end at replacing one language for the another? So I thought there is an opportunity, because this is an intervention coming from a social scientist, so I thought there was an opportunity missed there that the book could have used to speak more about it, and I did not find that. Coming to the 2 points that sir just highlighted, the book tries to make. One is about, it urges the readers and scholars of social sciences to incorporate Indian intellectual tradition to make a better sense of human nature and also the society. I think it's quite a thought-provoking one. It also urges them to strike a balance in staying away from, by using the Indian intellectual tradition, in staying away from extremist as well and essentialist tendencies, as well as to go beyond dominant Western frameworks, which I think sir has mentioned. What I got the sense from the framework of Purusharth and Vikar that is suggested by the author in the book is that somehow it underestimates or does not discuss the structures of oppression and their inherent link with the Indian intellectual or with the Indian knowledge tradition itself. So after reading the entire book, I got a sense that it does not discuss enough about, it does not take a critical inward gaze towards the Indian knowledge tradition that it supports and emphasizes on. I think it doesn't take into account the consenting sensibilities present within the Indian knowledge tradition and the culture. For example, there is very brief mention about, let's say, the role and status of women. I think it's a huge issue and it's been an ongoing one, and since the author has continuously gone back to the first 50 years or the independence struggle, the authors in that, and cited 2 of them. I thought that it's a very old trick in the book to just mention 1 or 2 examples of, let's say, competent women intellectuals and say there was like a a very empowering women tradition or something like that, or a feminist tradition present. I don't think you can reduce it to that. I mean the women issues or the massive structural discrimination and assault violence to that. I don't think it. It fails to do that, and I think this is my first point about the central argument of the book. Linked to this is that it does not talk about the politics of the Indian knowledge tradition itself, whether it is a specific text that it mentions or the schools of thought that the author discusses. I think it does not talk about their politics, it does not talk about their contestations, it does not talk about their context or who they are replying to and how where are they based without before arguing that they should be borrowed or there is some possibility there. So I think this is something that I found hugely missing in the book. About the second argument with regard to Purv Paksh and Uttar Paksh, I think it is very interesting argument, but my issue is that in the entire book I found that the author is taking or sir is taking Purv Paksh to be too shallow. I mean, there is a very rhetorical discussion on behalf of the Purv Paksh there, whether it is the dominant Western framework or whether it is the colonialism, secularist philosophers, as he said, or English language dominated academia. I think there is a very shallow discussion or shallow representation of the Purv Paksh. So, in my opinion, or that's what borrowing from him only. If this framework has to be, utilized properly, Purv Paksh and Uttar Paksh, there has to be like a very deep, nuance and a, clear or a more less reduced, to use Pradhanji's term, not that reductionist understanding of the Purv Paksh, so that we can have a better engagement as the Uttar Paksh with what the Purv Paksh is suggesting. So this is what I got from the book. These are my arguments, and broadly, while I enjoyed reading the book, I thought like it could have done better with the linked with the point of Uttar Paksh and Purv Paksh. Let's say when talking about Uttar Paksh, I could have been benefited more as a reader and a scholar with more citations. Who's saying this? If there is an argument in Uttar Paksh, where is it? I mean, is Uttar Paksh using this term or is it author's interpretation of that? So that's all I think from my side. But regardless of this, I think I really enjoyed reading the book, and I think everybody else will. And it's definitely a thought-provoking book, and several arguments are like that. So thank you.